Welcome to Whole Wheat Costa, because that's the name we picked for this silly podcast. I want to start off by introducing Kevin, my podcast partner. And then the first things first, he just showed me a creepy video on YouTube. Kev, you want to tell him about it?
Yeah, so we're trying to think of what to talk about for this podcast. I mean, I essentially do nothing interesting in life. I mean, I basically work. I currently just finished work day 7 of 12 in this 2 week cycle. There's not a lot of time to do any life stuff. So essentially, when I go home, I like to turn off the brain and watch YouTube. And I got into so my son is into spooky toddler stories. So it's literally like songs about ghosts and goblins and witches for toddlers. And they were actually pretty catchy. And he was into Old MacDonald before this, so it's a lot better than Old MacDonald on loop for an entire 45-minute car ride. But
I remember you used to play the Irish songs. The Irish songs were pretty good.
Yeah, he liked them for a while. And then he got an Old MacDonald. He wouldn't listen to wouldn't listen to Irish music anymore. It was literally 6 months of different versions of Old MacDonald. Which really messed him up because his favorite one was a heavy metal Old MacDonald. The guy would like growl into the microphone, but it messed up all his animal sounds. So
a chicken says
basically like he used to do a moo and it goes it's like his moo, like it's really messed everything up.
Yeah.
But like whatever.
Sam only screams anyway, so
we're over Kelly's parents' house, and her dad, is like plays the guitar and like sings and stuff. So he had a microphone on a stand out, and Sam walked up to the microphone and started growling into it. So he's definitely like going to be a heavy metal singer.
Yeah. Or at the very least, heavy metal fan. Well, there's nothing, nothing to be ashamed about that.
Yeah. So the the YouTube anyway. So I came across this whole community of like sort of creepy. So like YouTube horror, but it's like horror in like the creepy, unnerving horror sort of sense. Just like where things are like out of place sort of horror, not like the jump scare sort of horror.
Right. Creepy horror is like it's way scarier to me than jump horror. Jump horror, like and you're not gonna have nightmares. Creepy horror, like I'll have nightmares. No problem.
It just leaves you unsettled afterwards. Like it's not how the world's supposed to be, and I don't know. It sort of creeps into like your real life a little bit. Right. But then I came across this channel, Nightmind, which is the guy just does really good analysis of all the work. I first saw a couple other channels where it was people would be like, oh, this is what this video is about, and here's why it's like didn't really happen, and all the sort of like horror ones where they try to make you think it was a real life event. Oh, here's how I debunked the video. Like, they got kind of boring after a little bit.
Oh yeah. I've seen that guy. That I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like Scare Theater or something.
Right.
But this guy does a really in-depth analysis, and I first came across it actually with Petscop. So Petscop is a web series that's going on right now that this guy basically found, supposedly found like an old PlayStation 1 game that was never finished, and he's playing through the game and like sort of narrating it to his friend that's away somewhere. But the game's like very dark and creepy, but it's like not supposed to be. Like, it starts out as this really friendly, like, colorful, like PlayStation 1, like polygon art sort of thing, and then it just turns really dark, and it's actually about like child abuse and neglect, and there's all these theories out about it. There's like a huge Reddit like 60-page Google Doc about the 8 videos so far the guy's released. But I came across Nightmind with that because he did like this in-depth analysis where he basically like refuted a lot of the stuff that hundreds of Redditors have like taken time to do.
Is the game a real game?
No, it's essentially just a web series. So it's even more impressive because this guy basically programmed a whole game to play
that's awesome.
for the web series.
Yeah.
So
he went for the bit, like he did the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's storytelling 101 right there.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's not like and I'm sort of just getting into these videos. So apparently there were a couple other people that did like, mods of older games that they turned into horror. But I mean, this is like a 100% like brand new IP that this guy made. But anyway, then watching more Nightmind videos, I came across these Alan Resnick videos. So he's a guy that does sort of unnerving videos, and he released one. I mean, he may have done things before this, but I guess when at least he started doing these types of videos, he released one at the 4 a.m. slot on Adult Swim on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, and Adult Swim, I've watched. There's a lot of comedy and everything. So when you said this video was on Adult Swim, I was like, no, because this is real creepy. Like, there's some comedy horror or something, but this was straight horror. This was very creepy, and you know.
Well, that's I wonder like if the Cartoon Network people knew what they were getting into with this guy or not, because his group is called something like something comedy group or something is like what the name of their horror writing group is essentially. I forget exactly what it's called, but essentially, he released like a short film on 4 a.m. slot. Now apparently he's done a few more, and it's like a thing now. Like people that are fans of his like know about it, and they get like good ratings for this 4 a.m. slot on Cartoon Network. Like, so they'll release it for just 2 or 3 days, and then that's it. They won't play it anymore.
But it's saved on YouTube.
Yeah. So the one that we watched before this was called This House Has People in It, and I first came across the Nightmind video, and I listened. He does like a couple-minute intro, and then he says, okay, now before we talk about it, go watch the video. Like, it's excellent. It's an excellent video. It's really well done. Like, we want people to get the views and really watch it, and then come back here and we'll talk about it. So did that. And I went back to the Nightmind video. The Nightmind video. So this is an 11-minute short film. The Nightmind video is an hour and a half long. And I mean, it's a really dense film, but I was like, well, that's intense for like an 11-minute short film to have that depth of analysis, which is what this guy does. But and JD doesn't know any of this because he just watched the video for the first time. So there's actually about a ton more hours of content for that video. So
off 11 minutes.
Yeah. So the video is basically a surveillance camera, and it's like 12. It's like
9. It's 9.
It's 9 surveillance camera feeds of this house, and it's AB Security is the security company that's in the video,
right?
Which apparently is a play off of their like video production company, right, that really exists.
And I think, which we'll get into more, and like the whole video is creepy. But what creeped me out most was the kid. It's supposed to be a child's birthday party, and something's happening to the older sister. She's 13. She's on the floor, and they don't address it till about 5 minutes into the video. But they keep cutting back to the kid who's about 6 or 7, and like they're like, your birthday's over, and like he's doing like it's normal stuff, but he's still pretty creepy about it.
Yeah, and there's just so many like 1 or 2 off frames where you literally have to freeze the video to watch it. Right. Like I said, this Nightmind guy, I mean, his analysis is basically like he literally frame by frame analyzes the video. Right. But so apparently at the end of the video, there's a website for the security company. If you go to the security company, basically hack into the website. Like you have to find clues from the video, and then like use like I forgot my password thing, and like figure out how to use it. You can get the archive footage from that house's video camera, which is like there's like dozens of videos, like so dozens more videos like that basically of just like routine. Like there's one like long video where they're just talking about the guy who went to the eye doctor. They're talking about his eye doctor appointment.
That's even creepier.
So they recorded like dozens of hours of stuff for this, and there's like there's like a whole list of their emails that I guess were picked up, and so they made all these emails for the story. There's like a list of Word documents about it. So it's this huge archive of like hours and hours of footage that they made that's totally hidden. That if you just watched the video, you wouldn't know anything about. And they figured, well, it's the internet. And it's people that like horror on the internet, so they're going to look into it too much and find these dozens of hours of additional content. Yeah. And this weird little story about like a girl sinking into the floor is actually a huge metaphor for how our perception of the world is faulty.
Yeah, but like there's so much. You're right. It's a dense video. I talk about the creepy kid, but like the main the main focal point of the video is the daughter sinking into the floor. There's a plumber or a maintenance man fixing something down in the basement. He's trying to help. Everyone's panicking. Then at the end of the video, the last 2 minutes, the dad, he's going on some like rant about, I guess a Bible rant or
about how they're a family and they're gonna stick together.
Yeah, and like he's going on this rant and like he changed character and everything about this video is so well put together, and there's so many you could probably watch it 100 times and get something new out of it every time.
Yeah, I mean it's like I said, that guy's analysis. I mean he analyzes the other stuff too, but I mean it's about a half hour just on the 11-minute video, and then it goes into the other stuff. But it's really about Link's disease, which is a totally made up disease that once you know that, you hear them mention Link's disease a few times in the episode. Mostly the guy in the background on the TV talks about it. And it's essentially, it's like a made-up disease, but the family thinks that they have it. And sort of the idea is that the families become obsessed with the fact that they have this mysterious disease that doesn't really exist. And that's why they do all these weird actions. And a lot of the stuff they do is to, like, prevent the spread of Link's disease. And that girl sinking into the floor is, like, one of the side effects, essentially. And part of it is it's this made-up disease. And so they go into how it really shows how we perceive the world incorrectly. Because even essentially, so if you go through the 11-minute video, the emails, the dozens of hours of extra footage, you still really don't know what's going on.
Right.
And that's sort of the idea. There's always missing information. Like, you really can't make a judgment about anything because you never have all the information.
And the last part of the video, because like I said, the young boy is having a birthday party, and in the last part of the video, all the people, they have to stay outside. They're all on the ground, just like the girl. If they start sinking into the ground, there's not a basement to catch them. Like, they're going into the ground.
That's because they call it the Link's disease.
It's so weird. It's so creepy.
The actual last frame, and you can't see it in real time, but if you freeze frame it, the actual last frame is a terrifying, like, sickly, purple-looking guy wearing a kid's bed sheet, which, if you notice, the little boy doesn't have sheets on his bed. He's, like, neglected.
Oh, that is... I'm going to have nightmares.
And essentially the idea is that it's like and they have this thing in their head where they think they have this disease, and this guy is like the physical representation of the specter of this made-up disease. So that just haunts the family all the time.
Yeah, that's a crazy video. So you watch the guy who does all the Game of Thrones, Alt/X.
Oh, yeah.
He'll take a 30-second clip and make an 18-minute video. Like, is that the same way?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which I always thought was interesting because, like, I was, besides the nursing stuff, I was an English major I really focused, I guess, in high school. I took extra English classes and was an English major too in college. So like that depth of analysis is just interesting to take. Like, I used to be really good at it when I did that stuff. Like, I could, like, look at a stupid modern art painting and, like, give you a long exposition about it off the top of my head. I'm not good at it anymore because I think that atrophies if you don't use it. But
right.
but it's really interesting to see people that can do it well.
Well, when we were in when I was in 11th grade, we had to read Catcher in the Rye, and every week we did like a chapter a week, and then we had to analyze everything. And the teacher would go, like he sees ducks, and she's like, well, I want a 5-page paper on why you think the ducks are there. And I was like, hey, what if the ducks are just there because he's standing at a fountain? Why would he write like that? I was like, because J.D. Salinger is one of my favorite authors, and
he's a fellow J.D.
Yeah, he's a fellow J.D. But why can't he just be at a fountain and then there's water and then there's ducks? Well, why would he add that detail? I was like, because it's a book. Like, why wouldn't you add that detail? But that also brings me to my next point about what we're talking about is that YouTube has gotten so good that I barely watch TV.
Yeah.
And so you watch videos. Like, I'm subscribed to a bunch of videos, and then you watch other videos. And then you'll watch videos of videos, like, explaining that video, and you're like, oh, man, this is, like, it's so intriguing. So you don't watch TV, so, like, cable TV's, like, going out the window between YouTube and YouTube and Netflix and everything. And I'll spend probably 2 hours a week just watching, like, well-produced videos on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, this sort of like experimental stuff. I mean, you just can't get on TV except unless it's for like 4 in the morning, obviously.
Right.
Some of the other stuff that Alan Resnick has one other thing that wasn't on. I don't think was featured on like Adult Swim at all, which was essentially like a couple-year project where it's called Alan Tutorial, and I think I don't know if it came out at first that it was Alan Resnick or it was just like random videos, but it's like the rest of his stuff. Like if you watch in the right mood, it almost looks like funny, but then after you watch it for too long, it becomes really creepy. And it's essentially this like autistic guy doing tutorial videos on YouTube, and he's like explaining like how to like stack cans on top of each other and stuff like that. But he's like really just strange and off-putting, and he just like repeats the same things over and over again. And there's all these just weird mannerisms, and you don't know it's him because all you see is the guy's hands like explaining like doing things. So it never shows the actual person. But
like the videos off center or like what like how are they staged? Like
yeah, it's basically like he's taking like it's almost like a GoPro sort of cam of it. But I guess the idea is he's taking it on like a cell phone. So, but like initially he's just like in a room and he's doing them, and it's like, oh, this is kind of like, oh, it's just if you're that kind of jerk, it's like, oh, it's a retarded guy doing stupid videos, and then like in the first few are just whatever, and then like it starts to build into more of a story. And
wait, is this a series of videos?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not just one video. Like maybe it's a series of videos. So it's not actually tutorials. It's just a real creepy video. Like,
well, it's the guy doing. It's him. It's his whole start and say, oh, I'm gonna do a tutorial today, and it's like him showing you how to do something, but like something that like is everyone knows how to do, or something that like doesn't make any sense to do.
Right.
Like drilling a hole into like a can or something, like a soda can or something. Like it shows how to do stuff like that, but I think it went over the course of a couple of years where like he just sporadically released like tutorial videos, but it became this really dark. It became this really dark thing after a while. Like it was months of just stupid things like that, and then you start to see like in a couple of videos he like stops the video and gets quiet, as if like. He sort of shouldn't be doing the videos, and like he's trying to hide it from somebody.
Slow burn.
Yeah, and then you start to see like his room get a little more disheveled and stuff, and then you find out sort of indirectly that like he's essentially so there's a video where he knocks down like a blue chair and like refuses to touch the chair, and like there's sort of hints that like maybe like his mom died and fell out of a chair, and like he like relived it when this chair fell over, and like this baby blue color is always associated with him because he's like, even though he's an adult, he's very childlike. So then you sort of figure out, and again watching the Nightmind video, not personally figure out, but you sort of figure out that it's that that he's essentially this autistic guy who's like he's an adult but he's really 6 or 7 years old mental wise. And his mother died tragically, and now he's like his brother like agreed to take him in. And essentially, he lives in his brother's attic essentially, and his brother's like rebuilding his house, and in the meantime, he's really disruptive. And then then something happens where he starts to get mad at his brother, and he starts to like do more destructive things in the house. And then a few weeks later, there's another video where essentially he's kicked out of the house, and he's like, now he's this like childlike. Guy that can't take care of himself that's now like basically homeless, and you sort of see him go through that journey, and then it gets really dark because by this point, like in real life, the tutorial videos are popular and they have a lot of views. So then it gets into the storyline where essentially someone like gives him a place to live, but like forces him to do these tutorial videos because they're popular. So then the videos get like darker and darker, and he's clearly getting like sad because. This thing that was the only thing that like he had control over in life that was like his passion is now taken away from him too.
Right.
Now he has like nothing, and they just get like stranger and stranger, and eventually, I forget, the series is over and I forget how it ended. It was essentially like him like escaping from like this person's house, like breaking through the wall to break out.
So he became a prisoner.
Essentially, like he was given a place to live, but like had to like work for had to do these videos and like live there.
That's like That's a slow burn.
Yeah.
You know, that takes place over a couple of years, and
Yeah, and like it just gets and like at the point where he's at the house, like they start giving him like dollar bills under the door, and like that's like his payment for the videos and stuff, and it's like them essentially keeping this like this handicapped person captive like as like slave labor, and it's like and again it's them like taking away the only meaning he had in life, so I don't know, so I don't really know. I guess it's sort of a metaphor for like. I mean, I guess that's what happens to people. I mean, you do something in life that like you're, I mean, like for all of us, not just, I guess people that are disabled like that. I mean, even for all of us, I mean, you do things in life that are, you do them because you have a passion for them. Then like the passion gets beaten out of you eventually, and like you, sort of like get trapped, like in a job that you don't like, or, something, like in medicine, it happens all the time to people. You want to help people, and then you just, instead of helping people, you're in a crazy bureaucracy, or you're just doing paperwork all day, or you're overworked and you can't take good care of people, and it's just depressing,
Yeah, it's a depressing situation.
Yeah.
So, my sister, who I started talking to again, she has kind of a depressing life. She has cerebral palsy, and she's mentally retarded. But I started talking to her, and up until like 6 or 8 months ago, she was in a mental hospital. She's 31. She just turned 31. And it's crazy. I couldn't really talk to her because she was always on medication.
Yeah.
So you can't understand her on the phone. I couldn't really visit her because of bureaucracy and like, oh, well, this, that, and the third. And they gave her medicine, and she's 5'2". She went up to 255 pounds.
Wow.
They put her in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk. So I've been talking to her more. She moved into a group home, like 40 minutes away from here, right? So I'm talking to her. I can understand her. She sounds great.
Oh, wow.
The supervisor, because she has cerebral palsy, people are like, well, she can't walk. The supervisor of the group home, she told me it was like, she's like, oh, I was like, you can walk. You're walking. You're getting rid of the wheelchair. So she's walking, and which is good. So like she has her whole life, she's had this energy sapped out of her.
Yeah.
So she's never really had, like any of us, like me or my brother, never really had like that family environment. Never really had anyone caring for her because she kind of put it on herself. But then my parents, whatever, it's a whole story. And so I'm talking to her, and like you can hear this energy in her. She's in a group home with three other ladies, like her, that are like her, cerebral palsy, mental retardation, and everything.
Okay.
She lost 100 pounds in like
That's
8
awesome.
months. She's down to 155.
Yeah.
I'm talking to her. She goes to Wildwood, and then I'm talking to her, and she goes, guess what? And I'm like, what? And she's like, I got a boyfriend.
Nice.
And I was like,
she's getting the D.
yeah.
That's a pull the weight off.
Yeah. And I was like, you guys like kissing? She's like, just on the cheek. And I was like, I'm gonna come down there and kick his ass. She's like, why? Don't do that. And I was like, because I'm your brother, and that's what brothers do. And she's like, no, don't. And I was like, well, where does he live? He's like, oh, another group home. So we go to like dances, and
that's cool.
like I said, they shop at Target, they go to the mall, they go to movies, they go bowling.
That's awesome. That's like a regular life.
Yeah, and I was like so happy for her and everything. So she's trapped in this situation she couldn't get out of.
Yeah.
For like so many years, and now like they moved her to a group home, and like she loves it.
Yeah.
She does more stuff than me. You know what I mean? And like I could drive.
Yeah.
I make money. Like I have an income, and like she's like, yeah, we went down to Wildwood. I hung out with my boyfriend on the beach for like an hour. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame how easy it is for people to get overlooked, like in healthcare. Like, as I said, like that's what happened to her, unfortunately. I mean, like working at like a major hospital. I mean, we see people all the time that have like been just treated, have gone somewhere for years and like, haven't gotten the proper care, and then they come to us and it's like, oh, well, you just do this thing. And they're like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, we do it all the time. Like it's fine. You're fixed now. And it's like a shame. I don't know. We got a guy recently who is a guy that's like had a couple strokes, and like he's in like a home sort of, which is like, so sometimes it's confusing to like, because there's so many different living like home care situation. Sometimes it's confusing, like what sort of care people actually have at home. But it sounds like he's like in a home where like he gets like regular like nursing care and stuff, and he's significantly more comfortable in life. And then like the day after I saw him in the office, he was in the ER for essentially the problem we talked about. And then he came back in today, and I basically just went. I was like, what happened? I was like, we talked about all this stuff. We talked for like 45 minutes. Like, why didn't you do any of these things? And then he was like, well, I got confused. And then I was like I was kind of mad at him a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I pulled it back, and I was like, and I was like, well. And I was like, well, don't you live somewhere where like there's nurses there? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I wrote out very clear instructions. Like, why didn't they do any of these things for you?
Right.
Like, it's like I'm pissed off. Like I told the guy.
All right. It's part. At some point, you have to start pointing the finger at yourself too.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, oh, I didn't do it because I didn't have any help. Well, tons of people have help.
Yeah.
And I don't know the situation, but I don't know how capable he is. But
Yeah.
if he could speak with you and understand that he has to do that things, he could speak with a nurse and go, hey, this is what my doctor told me to do.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, there was because it was a thing that he had to do for himself, like a sort of procedure to do on himself at home.
Right.
And like he was able to do it in the office, so like physically he could do it. Like he had to demonstrate before I would let him leave. So, but I don't know. But yeah, it's hard to figure that out some of the time. Like, and that is part of the problem. People get helpless. Like people definitely get like learned helplessness when they're, sort of institutionalized like that. I mean, we see it. So somebody I worked with like in a previous hospital I worked at did a study about people that got kidney transplants and how sort of compliant they were with treatment afterwards. And with their transplant, I mean, transplant is a big commitment. Like you have to, you're taking a whole organ from somebody else. Like you basically have to change your entire life and live a very regimented lifestyle to keep this organ alive. And they sort of found that people that were on dialysis before transplant basically were totally non-compliant after. Well, not like much more non-compliant than people that weren't. And the idea was, unfortunately, when your kidneys fail and you have to go on dialysis, you have to go 3 times a week to a place where people hook you up to stuff, and and you sit there for hours, and like you have to base your whole life around like what you're told to do for dialysis. So some of these people just become helpless. Like they give up the ability to take care of themselves, and then you throw in a kidney in them, and you tell them, okay, now you have to take care of yourself, and it's super complicated now, and they just can't do it. Versus people who weren't on dialysis yet, but were in, just in kidney failure and got a transplant before that, and they were still actively taking care of themselves, like do much better, but that just happens with so many people. I don't know, that just become just can't do anything. I don't know.
I don't know if you told me the story or I read about a story. I don't remember exactly where I heard it from, but there was 2 college girls, and the one young lady took care of herself and everything, and the other young lady was a partier, like she partied and everything, and she had kidney failure, and she needed a kidney.
Yeah.
Because that's a lifestyle she lived, and the other girl, this other girl came to her rescue. Like, we're the same blood type. I'll give you a kidney. So she get the kidney transplant, and she went to go visit her in a hospital. She was very like standoffish. Like, what are you doing here? We're not even friends. She's like, I gave you a kidney.
Yeah.
And then she's like, doesn't say thank you. She was very rude about it. And then the girl, the one who received the transplant, she went back to it like a couple months later. Went back to like partying and drinking and doing drugs. And like the other girl, she got in trouble because she confronted her like, hey, I give you a kidney. I give you a second lease on life, and you do this. And she's like, what's wrong with you? And she's like, and then she got like in trouble for confronting it. And it was like, that's why I would never give anyone a kidney.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I've so I feel like I didn't tell you that exact story, but I have a couple of stories very similar where people got live organ donation. So somebody that was totally healthy went through a major surgery for no reason for themselves to give the other person an organ, and then the person was just again super non-compliant or super confrontational about doing the things they needed to do, And it just, yeah, I mean, it sucks. It makes you not want to help people. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you see a lot of other stories the other way, but like you see enough stories like that. I mean, I think there's just bad people in the world, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I used to think everyone was like good in the world, but I don't really think that way anymore.
When my dad was dying, he needed at least one kidney because he had renal failure.
Okay.
And he died of other stuff, so it wouldn't have saved him anything. The doctor told me, he's like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but if your dad was, if your dad's number 500 on the list, and we get 499 kidneys because of his history of drinking and drugs and everything, and somebody comes on the list, we're bumping him to number 2 again. He's like he'll almost never get an organ because of his history. And then you see other people like they get the second chance for like a kidney or a liver or something like that, and then they ruin it. And it's like if you gave me a kidney, I wouldn't drink anymore. I wouldn't. I'd be like, oh my god, I got to work out. I can't. I'd forever be your friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. I just, you don't know what some people go through some people's heads. I don't know. It's like really, I don't know. It's hard sometimes. I guess you just have to like, because for the most part, I think this is hard for people that just start practicing like nursing or medicine or whatever. But you have to look at people like people, and like, I don't know. I feel like when you start, you have to look at them like patients, like they're like these like disease things that you have to deal with. But like once you really start learning like people, like you feel a lot different. But then occasionally you get people like that just don't make any sense, that just make totally illogical choices, and then like you almost have to revert back to just thinking of them like a problem, because like if you look at them like another human being, like you do with everybody else and every other patient you see, and you see them just making these wildly absurd choices, like sometimes you don't know how to process it. I don't know.
It all comes down to behavior. You're like,
yeah,
well, if that ruined your life before, why are you going to go back to it? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And then you realize, like a lot of people put down therapy. Like, I'm not going to therapy. I don't need therapy. Well, you don't always need therapy because you're depressed or you have a problem or something like that. Sometimes you need therapy so they can explain why you're doing something.
Yeah.
Then make you understand how to change that, and then once you change that, it's a path. Like people think drug addicts. Well, why don't you just stop doing drugs? And then they'll give an excuse like, oh, it feels good or this or that, and it's behavior. They can't stop doing drugs. They have to understand why they're doing drugs, how it's harming them, and how they can change, and then what changes about it. But you have to change someone's behavior.
Yeah, I mean, I think the addiction cycle in particular is a very real thing, and I think and I mean, I'm judgy about people who use drugs, to be honest, but I think, I mean, I think anyone that doesn't have some sort of addiction is like lying.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty well-adjusted person. I definitely have things that like I compulsively do in life, and like that I know are bad for me.
But you have to realize there's things that you do are bad for you, but your family doesn't suffer from it.
Yeah.
I mean, your relationship might a week at a time, but like your family, like your stepdaughter Allison, will never have to suffer for anything. Sam will never have to like suffer for anything, because that you have to keep a roof over their head, you have to keep food in their stomachs, you have to keep clean clothes, you have to keep them educated. Like that, and I know you put that first. There's people that no matter what their addiction comes first.
Yeah, true.
Whether you compulsively seek attention or compulsively lie or compulsively eat, like me, you have to realize that's not first. And that's the point of a lot of addiction. People put their addiction first. You can have an addiction, I guess, as long as your priorities come first, and then your addiction.
Yeah, it's true. I guess there's a difference between so like the addiction cycle is essentially, that say like with a drug or like whatever, you're sort of at baseline, you're okay, maybe you're like a little down, that's why you're seeking something, but you're like at your baseline, and like you do a drug or you drink or like you like watch porn or you have sex with somebody, like whatever,
eat 3 cheesesteaks, whatever.
Yeah, eat 3 cheesesteaks, and you sort of get like a spike up in like and feeling good, and then and then you're like, oh, well, that was good. So then the next time you're in that same place, you're going to do it again. Because you're like, oh, well, that felt good last time. I'm going to do it again.
And you know it's temporary. Like the back of your mind, you go, that was temporary. You're going to spike down. You're going to do that same thing to spike up, and that's what are you going to do?
But what happens is eventually those spikes, when you do it more frequently, and eventually those spikes become your baseline.
Right.
So
and
now
you build a tolerance.
Yeah. So now when you're not doing that thing, you feel terrible because now your baseline is what used to be your high. So now your previous baseline is really low and you feel bad.
Right.
So now you have to do the thing just to get to baseline. And once you get to that point, it's impossible. I mean, there's no, how can you reverse that cycle without like a ton of hard work, which unfortunately, a lot of people in life, can't do or unwilling to do. Yeah. I don't know.
Hard work is like the worst thing anybody. Well, it's going to take a lot of hard work, and people are like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Essentially, it's a real struggle to stop those things. That's why people get addicted to cigarettes too. Without nicotine, you feel bad. Yeah. People that have drink a ton of coffee every day. Although coffee's been basically proven to be 100% positive for you, unless you have very specific medical conditions.
Yeah, there is a caffeine addiction in the point that once you get caffeine, you're like, I want to drink that coffee. But then what people don't realize is if you drink a glass of water, you'll fill that void of where the coffee, I need the coffee for the caffeine. Why don't you just, drink a glass of water? Or even with a food addiction, people don't understand that. Just drink a glass of water. You'll fill your stomach and you'll be like, all right, I'm good.
So the thing with coffee though, and I don't know if this matches up exactly, but at least one of the ideas is that basically coffee is what led to the Renaissance. So essentially before that time period.
The Renaissance or the Revolution?
Yeah, the Renaissance. So essentially, in the Dark Ages, people, there were, it was hard to get. It was if you're in an area where you couldn't get easily accessible water, you would drink beer because it was fermented. It was safe to drink.
Yeah, they boil the water. It's the whole history. They boil the water, and then hops is also antibacterial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So beer was the safest thing to drink. So everyone
beer and wine.
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone walked around sort of a little bit depressed, depressed sort of, mood affect wise. Right. And then the little bit before the Renaissance happened and all this intellectualism really took off is when people started drinking coffee. And essentially people went from a downer to an upper to drink all the time. And it led this huge change in the world. Supposedly, like I said, I don't know. I haven't looked into it much enough that timeline really matches up, but that's what I've heard a bunch of places. I guess around that time too is when, I guess it was a little after that when England really got into tea, tea from China. But
how did I always wondered this? I guess I could look into it because with the revolution, the Boston Tea Party and everything, we're still a British colony, and tea's one of their their biggest exports, and we're drinking tea, and then we throw the tea, and the British are like, hey guys, we don't actually want taxes on anything. We know you're not going to pay, but you have to pay taxes on this tea and maybe cotton, but mostly tea, and so they throw the Boston Tea Party. It's like, how did we become a coffee drinking society where England's still very big on tea?
So I think a lot of the world drinks coffee over tea. So I think it's just because I don't think it's just the world preference, but the tea thing. So I'm not sure how it started, but Extra Credits did a whole 5-part series on it, and their Extra History series, where they talked about the war with China basically over tea, and the idea was it was after England took over India. So the East India Company spent tons and tons of money in the conquest of India, and now they had to garrison all of India. And they spent tons of money on troops, and they expected to grow cotton in India, so they would make all their money back on that. But then they had, but then they took over the Americas, and cotton grew better in America than it did in India.
Cotton, that's what I mentioned a little earlier. Mm-hmm. We grew cotton and then shipped it over there, and
Yeah.
then they made textiles and then sold it back to us and taxed it. And it's like,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, exactly. But so then what happened was, so then around the same time, tea became popular in England, and and the place to import it from was from China. I think the statistic from the episodes was that 10% of the entire British economy was the tea trade.
Wow.
So 10% of all the money in England was for buying tea from China.
10%.
So to the point where the British government was going broke from buying tea. And the East India Company was going broke because they couldn't get enough of it to sell. And so essentially what happened was that the Chinese were really restrictive and closed off.
They still are.
Yeah. So it's not partially because of these wars in like the early 1800s. So China was really closed off, and English traders tried to open up China more, and when they refused, there was actually a minor war where they basically took I'm not sure if this is where like the gunboat diplomacy thing comes from, or if that's later on. I feel like it's later on, but essentially there was like a naval and marine campaign that took over part of China in order to force Chinese to trade with the British so they get better deals on tea. And the other part of it was the thing they found that grew really well in India, since all the cotton was going to waste, was poppy seeds. So the British government and the Honorable East India Company sold like millions of tons of opium to the Chinese citizens. Basically, England is the biggest drug dealer in the world, and that's how they were trying to make enough money to buy all the tea they needed.
Well, now America sells all the opium.
Yeah.
So no, that's so like it's both coffee, tea, opioids.
Yeah.
They're all big in America.
Yeah.
So.
And interesting. So actual opium, we still use in medicine.
Yeah.
Like real opium.
Well, they use like derivatives of cocaine, like lidocaine.
Yeah.
And they take out the psychedelic stuff and they're like, here you go.
Yeah. That's what cocaine is. That's a local anesthetic basically, but essentially, but yeah, I always feel very old timey when you give someone opium. So
wait, like it's actually called opium?
Yeah.
Do they smoke it or?
So we use it for two reasons. So in urology, people that are having bladder spasms, you actually give them an opium suppository, and it basically relaxes the bladder. And then in like more like GI stuff, people that have like terrible diarrhea where like their bowels just can't retain anything. There's different medicines to slow the bowels down, but the strongest one is just plain opium.
Yeah, when I broke my leg, I kind of got addicted to painkillers because I broke my leg, and they're like, here's painkillers, and then I accidentally took way too many painkillers.
Yeah.
Than I should have. Like they gave me a prescription for like 5 milligrams. So I was taking 5 milligrams, and then the next he's like, I'll just give you 20 milligrams. And I'm like, that's a big jump. So I took 20 milligrams, and I felt like super good about everything. And then like after that was all healed, my doctor just kept prescribing me pain meds. He's like, here's your pain medication. Here's your pain medication. And then I realized I wasn't pooping that much. And then I was like, I think I'm addicted to pain medicine. And it took like 3 days to shake it. Like I worked, I was sweating. I was like, that's not good. And I still haven't taken pain medication in like 5.5 years.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Unfortunately, that's what happens. I mean, there's a big crackdown on it now because, essentially, especially you have to do surgery on someone, they're in pain. You could bring them in the office and talk about it. You could convince them that, their pains, again, take time to convince them that, this is just normal. They just need to get through it, which is like probably the safer thing to do. Or you just write them a prescription for pain medicine, which takes like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So,
which most people want anyway. Well, it just takes time. They're like, give me pain medication.
Yeah.
But there is, which the FDA still isn't really researching, but like in states like Colorado, the opioid addiction has gone down because of the legalization of marijuana, and it's crazy. There's at what point does the federal government have a couple conversations?
Yeah, because there's not a lot of evidence that marijuana is like that bad for anyone, but I mean, opioids, clearly destroy
Right.
people. But I know when I was like new to practice, I definitely prescribed more narcotics than I do now. Like if I write a script that's lower quantity, I try to talk people out of it. Like, you don't really need this, or if they're, it's like 6 months since their surgery, and like, oh, I'm still in pain. Like, nah, you're probably not having pain.
six weeks you're probably not having
Yeah.
pain.
Well, and what's good, the government gave us some resources now. There's a way to search. There's a database now of every narcotic prescription. So you can search if you have a patient that's like asking for narcotic pain medicine. You put their name in, and it comes up like, Joe Smith has gotten a Percocet script from 3 different people in the last week. Then it's pretty easy to have that conversation with someone and be like, well, I looked it up, and you've gotten pain medicine from all these other people. If you need to continue with pain medicine, you need to talk to one of these doctors who already prescribed it for you. Like, it's pretty easy to have that conversation versus like, oh, I don't believe your pain's real, or versus like, something more accusatory.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just like, it feels bad to have that conversation. Some of the time people get really sort of like, offended. Some of the time you could be wrong. Some people are really in pain and they have, I don't know. So this sort of gives you proof one way or the other.
What's that usually lead to? Like, if you're like, well, you have this, you have to talk to the doctors, or they're like, well, I guess my pain's getting better, or are they like still like fiending for it?
No, people usually, people that are really like trying to scam you, like, know they are, and they just kind of assume they're not going to be caught. Like, it's rare, like, if you present them with evidence, at least in my experience, or, I don't really deal with like drug addicted people. I just deal with like, we get the occasional person who like probably likes the pain meds too much, but it's not like a normal thing that we see. But my experience anyway is like, if you call them out, like, oh, I see here that you have all these different doctors prescribing you pain medicine, and they'll just be like, oh, okay, like, they don't really try to argue. I don't know if you work in like an addiction clinic or something, if that doesn't happen, if people still get crazy about it.
Well, if you're fiending bad enough, you'll argue about everything. You'll lie to everyone, mother, kids, wife, husband. You'll lie to everyone to get what you need.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a problem. I think the awareness will probably reduce it a little bit. Because I don't know. Like, you definitely wonder some of the time. It's like, I wonder if this guy's taking this narcotic prescription, or if this is how he's paying his bills this month. Like, selling this. I don't know.
Well,
but
true story about the guy got shut down. He's in jail, prison, like long-term prison. There's a doctor in Camden, and you go up there, $25, and the front desk nurse, the doctor is never there. He never saw a patient.
Yeah.
The front desk nurse write you a prescription for like Percocets or whatever, painkillers. That's all they did there. And people would go get 200 for 90 days, and then they'd sell them, and then like 90 days later they get another one, and this guy, he had like 520 counts or something, like something crazy about like for the drug, like he's in prison the rest of his life.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, that stuff definitely happens, but it's weird on both sides of it, because like, so I know there's a primary care doctor like in this general area who like runs a practice like that, like sees a ton of patients, writes basically everyone that comes through the door leaves with a Percocet script, but he also does meticulous primary care. Everyone gets everything checked they're supposed to get checked. Everyone's blood sugar is perfect. Everyone's blood pressure is perfect. They take all their meds on time. Like his patients are high as fuck, but they're super healthy. His patients are gonna live forever.
Well, they're super healthy. They don't have stress because they're just taking drugs all the time. They're like, no, don't worry about it. But your blood pressure's perfect. I haven't worried about anything since '98.
Yeah. But I almost feel like he's like he's not just like, he's really taking care of these people. It's sort of like, I mean, he's giving them probably narcotics they don't need, but he's using it as like a ward to get them in so they take care of
Instead of a
themselves.
lollipop, like you go to the doctor's when you're a
Basically.
kid, you get a lollipop. He's like, here's your prescription.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, doc, see you in 30 days. You don't have to, please.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't write ridiculous. I mean, it's not like the
Yeah.
200 pills thing. These are ridiculous amounts, but like it's enough probably to get them by if they take it chronically. But yeah, I mean, his people were like super healthy, and he saw tons of like he had a huge practice. And I mean, he was a really hard working guy. Like it wasn't like this guy just sounds like he was just literally writing prescription. I mean, this guy like
No, the doctor was never there. I'm
Yeah.
not, like I know because I went to that office. The guy's like, hey, if you need prescription, you go to the office. I was like, yeah, I want to make an appointment with the doctor. It's like the lady's like, you don't understand. The doctor's never here.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I went back to work the next day. And I was like, and I asked the guy, and I was like, he's there. And he's like, oh, I thought you just wanted pills. I was like, no, I'm literally in pain.
Yeah. This guy was actually really hardworking. I think really cared about his patients. He just like used the carrot of Percocet to get them in the office. I don't know. And then, but the other side of it, I mean, you hear it. So I did a training thing recently about narcotic prescription. I just had to do like mandatory training things, and that was the thing I picked because I was just kind of curious about it. I did like a pretty long course about it, and one of the stories was like it was like a nurse practitioner run clinic who basically the DEA raided her office, and she had, she was a pain management specialist, and she had records of like, the evaluations she did on every patient, and the prescription she gave to them, and like the contracts they signed that they wouldn't get pain medicine anywhere else, and like did everything on the level. But there's just such a stigma about narcotics and drug use that even, I don't know, it's just a really dangerous area to get into. So, and it's a shame because there's people out there that are legitimately in pain all the time and need help, but there just aren't that many pain management folks around because it's just a dangerous profession. Right. Like you get crazy drug seekers that you don't know what they're going to do, and even the government's against you some of the time. Like in this poor woman who ran, it sounds like a very professional clinic, and like essentially and got raided by the DEA and had to go to court to get her license back. And she was proven totally innocent on everything,
right.
But it basically ruined her life.
Meticulous paperwork really helps you on an audit because I do auditing at work sometimes, and that's the best way to argument. Like you don't argue with what you think. You argue with the facts. Like here's all this paperwork. Like here's everything, and if these people are prescribed medicine elsewhere, there's a database. Like they sign contracts. They're in breach. It's not my fault, And it is a dangerous time, and I don't know where it's gonna go, but something's got to happen soon.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about real quick, because this is our actual first episode, 85th try.
Yeah.
For a whole week.
We've been trying this for weeks.
Yeah.
And this is the first one that sounds like it might be usable.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk about why I wanted to start this podcast.
Yeah.
And so the biggest reason I wanted to start this podcast is I really don't have anything. I don't have much to do. You're much busier than I am, and I started listening to podcasts. And there's one podcast, Tell 'em Steve Dave, where I talked to him, and one of the main hosts, he lives with like a lot of depression, and they were talking about all the way like episode like 320. They're talking about like why he wanted to do the podcast, and he's like, well, I get to meet up with my friends for at least once a week, and I'm like, I have something to look forward to every week, and no matter how busy I get, like there's always nights, and I'm like, if I can do something once a week, I have something to do once a week, and I can meet up with my friends once a week, and then it gives me a hobby. And then the more I listen to podcasts, like I listen to, like for instance, I listen to 4 different combat sports podcasts. And I don't even watch MMA, and I barely watch boxing. Actually, I like boxing a lot, but I don't watch as much. And now, like, that's given me a second interest. Like, I can watch MMA, and I can watch YouTube. I can read about MMA or boxing or judo, and I listen to these guys, and I know what you're talking about. And then the more you listen to these podcasts, the more you get to know these people, and it's like you're kind of their friend. Like you really know about them. And then I found another podcast. It's the Church of What's Happening Now with Joey Diaz, and I I live with my dad passing away at an early age. For him, he was 53, and like this guy Joey Diaz, he what he talks about. Like I've heard stories like from my dad, and he had the way he speaks. Reminds me of him. It's just funny, and so like these guys, a lot of these guys that I listen to, like this podcasting, they get to talk about their life and everything, and really help them. And I figured that something like this could help me with either like being depressed or having someone to talk to and having something to look forward to. So I figured I would just do it. Um, and Kev, why do you want to join me?
No, I totally get that because one comment for future podcasts is we need our separate beer tables because I have to lean way over to reach the beer table in the middle between the two of us. But no, I totally get that because I feel like so I went through hang on one second.
Kev didn't put the beer opener back on the beer table.
So I opened a beer and I didn't want to put it back on the table because I figured it would be really loud and pick it up on the microphone. So I just laid it gently on the floor, but it was really far away. But yeah, so no, I totally get it because so I know for me, so I went through a divorce. 3 years ago.
We went through a divorce at
Yes.
the same time.
Yes.
We're not going to get into them.
Yeah, we're not getting into specifics, but I mean, essentially, went through that. I mean, we've been together for so long. I mean, it was all, I essentially had 100% of my friends were, mutual friends. So I guess, so counting JD, one person sort of went with my side afterwards. So I went from.
I went with both sides because I was going through a divorce at the same time, so I went with both sides. But then she's like, "Ma, you blah, blah, blah," and I was like, "Whatever."
Yeah. So, and I mean, and I've never been someone that's great at making long-term friends. Anyway, I've always been someone who's like good at making new friends, even though recently that sort of dried up. So I mean, so it's not like I had like lifelong friends that I knew from when I was in grade school or anything like that. But there was a group of guys I thought were pretty cool that I hung out with. So essentially, and one of the things that I was really into was Game of Thrones, and we talk about that stuff. And essentially, after I had no one to talk to about it, I started watching. So Alt Shift X, JD mentioned earlier, and Preston Jacobs is another guy on YouTube that talks about crazy fan theories about Game of Thrones, and Extra Credits on YouTube. They talk about game development. I started watching them, and it really helped me through a lot of that because I mean, essentially, and it sounds really sad, but I mean, essentially, they were my friends, sort of like my, I was the anonymous person on the other end, but I mean, that's really who I had to like listen to about stuff, and I don't know, and that sort of really got me through that. There was actually sort of an aside, unrelated to why I want to do the podcast. They did Extra Credits before Christmas, did a few episodes about sort of how games helped different people, and the story I thought was awesome because it was basically like my story that this person told. Essentially, they went through they went through a breakup and were like really despondent and had didn't know what to do in life, and then they found the game Dark Souls, and they talked about how Dark Souls like changed their life, and it was awesome. Sort of like the one of the channels I use as my escape for this, like told sort of my like what my story was, because right around the same time, and I played Dark Souls in the past, and it's a terrible, challenging game, but that's incredibly fair. And essentially when you're going through something like that and you feel like life's sort of unfair, and obviously life really isn't unfair. I mean, essentially, most of the things that happen to you, good or bad in life, are sort of your fault. Yeah. And that's sort of the point of Dark Souls. Dark Souls is a game where, I mean, even the simplest area in the game, if you don't go through with intention and go through slowly and pay attention to your surroundings and do all the things about the game every time, like, you're going to die. But but what Dark Souls does is they make it very clear that every time you die in this very challenging game, it's your fault. It's not the game's fault. The game didn't cheat you. You just weren't good enough, and you just didn't do things well enough. And if you want to win, you have to do better. And that's just, I don't know. I feel like, going through like tough times, it was like such an important thing to see, and one of the things I think Extra Credits talks about a lot and like why people play games is sort of like, games give you this instant feedback on that. Like it's different to read in a book or see on a movie like, oh, you should take control of your own life. But to have this metaphor smack you in the face over and over and over again, it really drives it home. Like, basically like, oh, I can do whatever I want in life. I just have to work hard enough to do it. And it's just a really good message. But I also would say what JD said about the podcast. I essentially, so years later, are still paying off divorce-related things.
See, my divorce was different. I made her pay for everything.
Yeah.
She left me for another guy she worked with for no reason. So
yeah.
I was like, I ain't paying for shit.
So, and again, I guess the consequence of like when your lives are really tied together for a long time, there was a lot sort of to sort out and a lot of expense involved. But essentially, years later, I'm still working a ton of hours to pay it off, with 2 jobs and all of that nonsense. So I was really interested in doing the podcast just to have something that, was something that consistently I would do every week that was not work or, essentially my life is work and kids, which, the kids part's great, but I guess as an adult, you need some adult time at some point. And I literally would go weeks with none of it. So just to have something to do weekly is pretty awesome.
Kev, when did you meet your ex? How old were you?
I wasn't 20 yet. I guess I must have been 19. I would.
How old was she?
Probably 18.
Oh, okay. See, so you spent what from 20 to 30?
Yeah, essentially, like my whole 20s.
Yeah. So I met mine when I was 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right after. Yeah, like 20. It had neither one of us could drink, and I went up to 26 with her, and so most of my adult life was with one girl.
Yeah.
Same with you, most of your adult life. So when like things happen, you're like, what do I do now? And then you're like, oh, I gotta start. And funny thing today, and I always thought about it because I never wanted to be a divorcee at 26. I got married at 26, and she left me when I was 26. So yeah,
I always knew I would be.
Yeah.
I definitely made jokes before I got married, like, oh, my second wife.
Yeah, I never wanted to be a divorcee. I was like, it's the realm of possibility, but I'm not like a bad dude. But the thing about it is today, and I was checking to see if William Shatner was still alive.
I think he is.
Yeah, no, he's like 86. I'm like,
Yeah.
how's he still living? He's had like 4 wives.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not. I guess it's pretty normal, Like,
you think over 86 years, so it's basically his adult life stay over 66 years.
Yeah.
That's what? That's almost that's like 15 years per wife.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay,
Fine.
I could have like 3 more divorces. I'm not famous, so I mean 2 more. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. I guess and I feel like I've finally gotten over this, but I feel like I was like a fairly self-destructive person and sort of always knew I would like do something that would like cause my whole life to come crashing down at some point. And I eventually did. And I don't know. But then was able to rebuild it and stuff. So it's pretty good now. But
rebuilding stages.
Yeah. But speaking of like, so I was thinking about this when we were talking about the learned helplessness thing earlier with like patients. One of the girls at work was talking about like having to make an appointment for her husband or something. I was like, I've never made a doctor's appointment. Like I went from my mom to my ex-wife to my current girlfriend. I've literally in my life never called a doctor's office. I don't know. So I don't know. Although I had to make like an emergency sort of cardiology appointment.
Were you drinking Dab again?
Yeah, it was around that time though,
okay.
and one of the administrative assistants I work with, she was going to get some of my records from a cardiologist I saw years ago, and so she called her and made the appointment. And my girlfriend was like pissed about it. She was like, "Oh, well, why don't you let that girl make all your appointments from now on?"
Yeah, I go and it shouldn't be because it costs you more money, not much more money, but it costs you money. My primary doctor is a hematologist, oncologist,
Yeah.
and like it's weird because he's like, you can't see me as your primary doctor, and I'm like, no, don't worry about it. He's like, okay. So like my primary doctor is a specialist, so I pay specialist uh, money to go see this doctor because he's like super honest. You
Yeah.
know, it's like he'll be like, you're fat still, so maybe if you lose weight you'll be healthier. I'm like, huh, all right. And he's like,
Yeah.
how's the rest of me? He's like, I'm a hematologist, and I'm like, yeah, but how's that? Like, how's the rest of me doing?
Yeah, I can tell you about your blood. If it's
Yeah.
outside of your blood, I
Yeah.
really don't know. Stop
Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
I tell you this every year.
Yeah. Oh, I got this real bad bruise and rash. He's like, I'm a hematologist, and I'm like,
Yeah.
God, don't worry about it, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely in a special office. I mean, people come in all the time and like start talking about another. I just stop them. Like, that's a different guy.
Yeah.
We're not. We're don't even tell me.
Yeah.
I literally don't care.
Is it penis or balls related?
Yeah.
No, then I don't know what it's called.
But yeah, we're actually interviewing someone for a new position, and she works in like in cardiology now. And I mean, I interviewed her today, and I literally just told her I was like, you could just forget all that stuff if you work here. Like, you don't need to know any of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just put it right out of your head.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even need to know where the heart is. Don't even worry about it. What's the heart?
Yeah.
It's that Valentine's Day thing, right? Like, that's all it is. That's all it is to us.
Yeah. So, what you mentioned about rebuilding your life is about my separation. Like, I was sad for like 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years. I was sad for like 2 years, and then so I finally I pulled myself up by bootstraps, which I just found out what that meant. It's doing something that you think's impossible,
Okay.
and because you're pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Just think
Yeah.
about it. And
So you're sort of defying gravity.
yeah, and she started school before me,
Mm-hmm.
and I just found out that I finished and she didn't, and I felt like really good about that.
Satisfying.
You know, I have almost no one supporting me, and I support myself, and I'm like cool. And I graduated with honors, and like she's still going. And I was like, all right, yeah, I don't live at home or anything. So I felt really proud about myself.
Yeah.
You know,
That's good.
and that made me feel a lot better about myself. I'm like, oh, where am I going with my life? What direction am I going? And I still think that, like, where am I going to be in a year? I don't know, but I'm like, I accomplished something by myself, you know, and it feels really good. And I was like, and I felt like broken, but I was like, the whole time, I was working towards a goal, but I was so focused externally on like feeling the way I felt that but internally my mind was still working. Like, I was still working towards a goal. So I mean, that's like my rebuilding story. And
well, I think that's the most important thing in life is agency, you know, and it's the thing. So in Extra Credits, they talk about agency a lot because essentially it's the thing that games teach you. You know, the idea that, again, that you're in control of your own life. You know, and that's sort of you know, like if you look at people that, you know, like with the drug addiction stuff earlier, that feel like they just, you know, they can't get out of a cycle. It's a lack of agency. You know, I mean, agency is essentially, you know that you are the actor in your life, and you know, people with a high sense of agency essentially, you know, think that when bad things happen, the thought is, well, how can I fix this bad thing? You know, versus people with a low sense of agency, the bad things happen, and it's like, oh, well, this sucks. So what am I even going to do? I can't do anything.
right.
You know, so I think I don't know. I think we're high sense of agency people, but I don't know. I feel like that's, you know, it's a tough thing. It's hard to build. Like, if you sort of like, you know, if you don't start out that way in life, I don't know how you gain agency. But
you just
I don't know.
sometimes you just have to, like, no matter how much it hurts you. Like, I hate working Saturdays. I already work like 6:30 to 4 every day. You know, I get up at, like, I have certain goals. Like, I want to lose weight. And last week I did really bad because I had a graduation party. And then I just ate and drank for a whole week. Like, it was like a week-long party. So, like, I have goals. So I get up at, like, 5 in the morning. I take a shower. I start running at 5:20. I start work at 6:30. And then, like, I make money because I want to make more money. And then they ask me on Saturday. I hate working Saturdays. So I work Saturdays. And I'm like, this Saturday, will help me pay for things I want to do
Yeah.
this Saturday night. It's like the same with you. Like you could have begged and cried, like paying back your wife, for the house, your ex-wife for the house. So you could have begged and cried, took it to court. But you're like, all right, I set a goal, 6 months, got to pay her back. So you do what you don't want to do. You sacrificed all your time for the last year and a half
Yeah.
working to pay her back because you know that end goal, it will be satisfying. That's why
Yeah.
I work so much. Or you know what I mean. One day we'll be out of slumps, and then we'll hit that goal, and then we'll figure out. Well, like, all right, well, I'm in this slump. Well, how do I get out of this slump? There's no sitting back and relaxing. Well, it's somebody else's fault. No, it's my fault. So I got to get myself out of this slump. You can't you can't depend on people to get you out of your own slumps. So what you do is you use everything to your power to get yourself out of your slumps.
Yeah. No, it's true, and that's the big thing is like depending on yourself. I mean that's what I learned going through like a divorce and stuff is like essentially, people can talk a big game, but like it's generally when you're at your lowest, like no one gives a shit about you.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people are individualist. You could say the word.
Individualistic.
Yeah, individualistic, where they only care about themselves and they think, how can this guy help me?
Yeah.
And you're helpless yourself, so like, oh well, he can't even help himself. Why would I even want to talk to him? He can't help me. So and then but people like me and you, when people are low, we'll be like, you know what? I'm going to help them.
See, I'm not like that anymore, to be honest.
But with me, you are.
Yeah. Well, because I feel like you're, I basically have gone, sort of responded to what I've gotten, like I felt like you were there for me, so I would want to be there for you, but I feel like in life, I feel like this is part of where like I really sabotaged myself before was. I was very concerned. Like I was very concerned with helping other people that were not important to my story. Essentially, right. I helped a lot of people that could give two shits about me. That ultimately, as soon as you're down, I can't help them anymore. Just backstab you. Yeah. And versus helping myself and helping my family. Right. And I think. I think what's good is if you go through something like we went through, and then it, and you learn from it, and you refocus, and you say, okay, well, that like charity starts at home thing, I'm going to take care of my family, I'm going to take care of myself, and then whatever's left over, I'll give to other people. It's fine, right. But like if there's nothing left over, fuck other people, And I think and it's just again like caring about the people that care about you. And not caring about people that don't care about you, and it's but like I think it's I don't know I think you have to go through some sort of wake up call or like I don't think people innately know that like I think you have to go through something that shows it to you before you can like think that way. I don't know.
Well, that we're at like an hour and 15 minutes.
All right.
So that's
my butt's pretty numb on this chair.
So that was shit. So we're gonna delete and start over. No. So we're gonna work on these as much as possible. But thanks for listening to Whole Wheat Costa.
Yeah.